Iron within, iron without. In true 4th Legion manners, we start right into the matter. Clipping out the bits from Mr. Ironfather here and gluing the mainframe together. I went into this build completely blind, only knowing I wanted him to look like an Iron Warrior in the end. As usual with most of my builds, I tend to ignore the tabletop rules. So after his mainframe stood, I removed the arm joints for the original stance of this model, as this just opened up opportunity. And when I looked at the miniature, I thought I could make one leg look like it's being mechanical. I took a teleport beacon and removed the cables, as they have a nice texture, and one of them already broke while snapping it off, making the cutting into length part a little more easier. I placed one of these steel cable-like thingies on the left and one on the right side of his leg, dropped the miniature because I really had a clumsy one, and went on with posing and repositioning these cables. As I tried to match the aesthetic and general shape of the other leg, I used another plastic rod. This one came from a Chaos Warrior Hellbard, as I just have plenty of these laying around after owning maybe 40 Chaos Warriors. And after this little insight in my obsession, I cut it into length and removed the spiky bits, and cut an about 45-degree angle into them so the rod connects to both foot and knee at the same time. And with this piece in place, I went on with his arms. I thought giving this one Terminator arms is the way to go, as they somehow really match the aesthetic of the Gravis armor in my opinion. He also got a Chaos Space Marines plasma pistol, so it seems he is slowly becoming a Chaos Lord that's Iron Warrior themed, I guess. I figured that one of these steel cable-like rods on his now mechanical leg look a little bit weird, so I covered it up with some makeshift cables out of green stuff. And now onto his left arm. I figured that I wanted to use the original Minis X in the end, so the first thing was to remove the Stormbolter from the Terminator's arm to make room for the next steps. Which was cutting away the forearm of the Terminator's arm, as well as the upper arm of the mechanical one that comes within the box. Now I only had to align the joints of these two half arms to make one whole arm. And when I thought it looked about right, I glued these two together. This time I drilled a hole into the X to be able to pin it with a very small steel rod from an old Clippy. I assure you, no new Clippy was harmed during this build. This time. Now that I truly matched the Iron Within phrase of the Iron Warriors, I tri-fitted the lower part of the X and attached it with a little bit of green stuff first to see how it looks. I let that harden for a couple of minutes and used this time to relieve the bolter from this weird symbols. I personally like this part of the miniature very much, thinking it's quite unique, so it's going to stay as it is intended. Now that the green stuff is a little harder, I removed some chunks from the shoulder armor, as I want him to have a very open stance in the end. When I thought that this will work, I removed the lower part of the X for the next steps and very roughly sculpted the upper arm of him. Again, only roughly matching the original Space Marine arm, as most of that will be covered anyway by the huge pauldron. I carefully attached it onto his torso and tried to sculpt some arm joints with the backside of my knife. For his left shoulder, I thought it is fitting using the original Iron Hands one, where I just removed the Iron Hand with my knife and carefully scraped it as smooth as possible. I put a small ball of green stuff between the pauldron and the arm to elevate the pauldron itself. And after that I went on with his head. which is a normal Chaos Space Marines one with these optic enhancers or whatever these should represent. I went back to the Horus Heresy, stole a Vox there and put it instead of this normal boring light. And for his base I took a bit from a Chaos Knight's chainsword and removed the dirt from his original tactical not rock, as I want him to stand a little more elevated. As you see me drop this miniature once again, I have video proof that this build is actually quite steady, all for the content. As I said, I really had a clumsy day. But anyway, putting on some bits from I know not where onto the base and went on with his axe. I cut the lowest part of that spike away as I want to give the impression that this one is sticking in the ground, while the intention is to create one of 3 anchor points. So, a small ball of green stuff, a lot of patience for choosing the right angle, and like 50 minutes later I was quite happy how it looked. And while it isn't 100% straight, it is at least 90%, which is okay for now. Perfection is the killer of progress, right? I gave him his other mechanical arms, and because he hasn't enough weapons now, he got another one. Mostly to have some colors on him later. And again, I took a Horus Heresy era Volkite for the arm that is facing in the same direction as the Marine's right one. To have another anchor point, I thought I'd glue some cables onto the axe, even though they would be quite hindering swinging that one, but I guess he will have a workaround for that. And I also found this bit where I have absolutely no clue where I got this from. It looks like a part of a servo skull or something. But most importantly, it fitted the aesthetic and it fitted perfectly onto his arm and into the axe. I gave this miniature some time and 2 days later it was time to paint him. I surprisingly started with dark silver here, that I just brushed and stippled onto the miniature with a large brush, giving the entire miniature a coat of it. Once that was done, I went on with a brighter silver and tried something new. What happens if you put a reddish brown onto the still wet silvery places? I can tell you, they mix and form a very smooth blend that goes slightly into a reddish or pinkish-like tone. But it does look very unique and very naturalistic right from the start, which I do like very much, to be honest. And by the way, if you've seen the cultist video, here's how the big cow looks now. Cool miniature. And after that I painted some small details as well as some skulls on the axe and the shoulder trim with dark bronze. If you made it up until this point, I would love to encourage you to leave a like and maybe a subscription. And if you already have the new hype function, you could try it on this video, as this really helps the channel growing. And washed everything in Vallejo's Game Wash Black as well as with Vallejo's Black to darken it down even further. For me it is always very important to have lots of volume in metallic tones, so going down to a more or less pure black helps with the contrast. I brought back the shiny silver again with Pro Acryl's dark silver and silver and went on with the yellow and brown parts. Like his shoulders, the leathers, the axe hilt, that all got a layer of dark rust and burnt red. For the yellow parts I went on with Parasite Brown and Sun Yellow, as well as Elfic Flesh for this little skull here. The bolter and his left shoulder got a coat of black, and after that I tried some hazard stripes, which of course failed for the first time. So I had to repaint the shoulder and kneecap again. And I also have to thank my amazing patrons who with their continued support made it possible so we can have a very cool video by the end of the year. Let me tell you something, it's going to be big. And after that I very roughly edge highlighted the pouches with Elfic Flash and went on with all the soon to be red glowing things. So both of his weapons, his eye lenses, as well as the little skull on his back module, where I planned some OSL, were painted with gory red. I very uncarefully stippled the area that is going to be enlightened with an old brush to indicate the darkest part of the light and went on with a normal brush going brighter the closer I get to the light source. And after that it was time for some more rust effects and small details. I used Wildrider Red and Jade, which I watered down to place it on various places of the miniature where I thought it is fitting. I also painted the cables in yellow and added some hazard stripes as well. I really have to say I do like Pro Acryl's Jade. It is such a nice color and gives so much character, especially to miniatures with, let's be honest, a very trist color scheme like the Iron Warriors. I also painted a small 4th Legion freehand and based the miniature with AK Interactive's Fireland and Elfic Flash wet blended into it and called it done. So what do you think? Did I manage to represent the Iron Warriors well enough? And do you like your Iron Warriors to be rusty or clean? I would love to know. I have to say I always find it quite difficult to paint these guys, as well as other metallic schemes. I always have the feeling that something is missing and adding rust effects definitely helps for my visual taste. But I'm afraid that's it for today, so thank you for watching and we are going to see each other in the next one.